Welcome to this episode of Unraveling Adoption, an intentional space to delve into adoption's complexities together. I'm Beth Syverson. I'm an adoptive mom of a vibrant and insightful 19-year-old son, Joey, who is struggling to find his path. I am walking beside him while working on my own personal growth and healing. We are committed to helping anyone touched by adoption, and we want to help the general public understand adoption's complexities better too. Today, I'm so excited. We have two guests. This is a rare happening. Brian Stanton is an adoptee, and our second guest is his birth father, Rick Wertz, whom he reunited with just 3 years ago. Brian is living the dream in Los Angeles as an actor, filmmaker, and playwright. Don't look so surprised. You are living the dream.
L-I-V-I-N.
He produced an award-winning solo play about his adoption called Blank and toured it around the world. And during COVID, he produced a film on his iPhone from his house about his search for birth family members called At Ghost Kingdom. You can rent that film anytime on Vimeo, and I'll put the link in the show notes. Brian found Rick after wrapping up that film project. So now I guess he needs to create another film about their reunion. Waiting for that to happen. And this reunion story, y'all, has many twists and turns. So buckle up for this ride. Welcome to both of you, Brian and Rick.
Great to be here.
Thank you. Honored and a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so happy. Now, Brian's in LA with me, and Rick is in Texas somewhere. Houston?
Houston. Mm-hmm.
Houston, Texas. I'm just so glad you're both here, and I can't wait for everyone to hear your amazing story. So let's start with Brian first, just to pretend Rick isn't here, and just tell us your adoption story, your childhood, and stuff like that.
Yeah, sure. I'll just kind of hit some bullet points, Beth, and anything you want to unpack, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, I was adopted shortly after my birth. I think I was in foster for maybe just a few months. I had always known that I was adopted. I don't remember a time my parents ever sitting me down and telling me. It had just always been part of the conversation, which I'm very grateful for. Mm-hmm. I grew up with a brother and a sister. My adoptive mother had quite a few miscarriages and thought she couldn't have kids of her own. So they adopted me. But then, as so often happens, she gave birth to my sister a year later, and then my brother 4 years after my sister.
Okay.
So I grew up with a brother and a sister who were biologically related to my adoptive parents.
Okay.
Yeah. And my adoptive mother always told me that I always asked about my birth mother. She was always on my mind, and I'd always ask who she was and everything like that.
And did your adoptive mom answer your questions, or did she know anything about?
She didn't know much at first, but then later I did find out that she had more information than she was letting on, probably when I was around 13-ish.
Okay.
Yes. So I'll jump to that. When I was 23, she gave me my original birth certificate.
Oh, okay.
Now, I was born in Kansas City, Missouri. Missouri records were closed, whereas Kansas records have always been open. My adoptive mother knew somebody in Catholic Charities. I was adopted through Catholic Charities, who gave her the information. She took a photocopy of my original birth certificate, angel that she is, and gave it to my adoptive mother. And she gave it to me when I was 23.
Nice. So that's great. And she also knew that information the whole time and didn't tell
I know. I know. I was like, how long exactly have you had this? Because she had also done her own research and wrote a bunch of information on another piece of paper. And like she knew who she was married to and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, wow. I would have liked to have had that information. Yeah. Especially since I asked about it.
Yeah, since you were asking. Yeah, I suppose she wanted to protect you or something, but.
Yeah. And, adoptive parents are told lots of different things. And it's nowadays we're a lot more educated on how it helps psychologically, emotionally, of just having the information if the child asks for it.
Yeah. Tell whatever you know in an age-appropriate manner. Very good.
Correct. And age appropriate varies from kid to kid too. Yes. So, you just don't know what that is.
Yeah, it depends a lot.
But I was 23, so I guess she found my age appropriate at 23.
Okay. You're old enough now.
Yeah, and it had my birth mother's name on it. It was very simple, Beth. We looked her up in the phone book because we knew who she was married to, or at least thought we knew. And there they both were right there in the phone book.
Okay. Do you all remember phone books?
Kids, back in those days, they had something called phone books. Beth, we were both on it. We were both on that.
Oh, my God.
The white pages.
taking your finger all the way down, trying to find the one name.
Exactly.
Oh,
That's exactly what it was.
and then they become like a doorstop. They're really useful, actually, for lots of things.
Yes.
Booster chairs. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, booster
Big
chairs.
paperweight booster chairs. Perfect.
How do people do booster chairs anymore? Yeah. Well,
Perfect.
Kids nowadays are really missing out on the phone books. But so that is a pretty easy search story. Now, how did the reunion go?
I got very lucky. The reunion started off fantastic. I mean, it was the perfect honeymoon, although I will admit I didn't know how to take it. Like at first it was very exciting, but then when we saw each other in person, I didn't have the support groups to help give me this knowledge and help me understand emotionally where I was with this whole adoption thing and where my mother could be.
Okay.
So she was very handsy, very, never wanted to let go of me and just wanted to hold me and just things that she said just to me seemed very forward and I didn't know what was happening. And she said things like, I didn't want to give you up. That's not what I wanted to do. I'm so sorry, and kept apologizing. But here I was told that she made the best decision for me and adoption is a beautiful thing. And so to hear the opposite
does not compute
really threw me.
Yeah.
Really
I bet. Wow.
What do you mean you didn't want to give me up? What? Then why did you? And everything just kind of came up. But I kind of started becoming the adult and trying to calm her and appease her and tell her everything's okay. I'm okay. I'm fine. Right? That's how it goes.
Yeah.
And I think, Beth, after quite a few years, I think I was slowly kind of pushing her away. At least that's how she describes it to me today. I didn't mean to. I didn't know I was. But, we have that push-pull thing like, no, stay back, but I want you. Stay back. No, I want you, And I didn't understand. Years later, I understood, thanks to my play Blank and audience members who've spoken with me after, and the adoption community with support groups and all these conferences where I met you, Beth, at a conference in Louisville.
Yes.
Then I understood just a little bit more what adoption has meant to me, what it means to me now, and also from the birth mother's point of view. And hearing the perspective from all the mothers out there really helped me understand why she was holding on to me so much and why, what she was saying. And if I had that, gosh, it could have been a better reunion down the road. Right now, we're still in communication. We still see each other. When we see each other, when we talk, everything's great.
Okay.
But the ball is fully in my court. She is too scared to initiate anything else anymore.
She doesn't want to push you away. Does that make sense? Yeah. That does make sense.
Yeah, she doesn't want to be pushed away.
Yep.
Yeah.
So she's like, well, you let me know when you're ready. So then it's like all the emotional labor is on you then. So I understand.
Yes, and that's exhausting.
Yeah, she's trying to be considerate, but Of
course.
So you're trying to navigate all of this. That's a lot.
Yes.
And you wish you'd had that when you were 23, those support groups already in place. That would have been really nice. So I think they're becoming much more, I don't know, maybe just because I'm living in this world all the time. It seems like they're everywhere, but it's a lot more than it used to be. Yeah.
Yes, I think so. And listeners out there, look in your area, look online. And there are online Zoom support groups that are fantastic. So please look them up. Very helpful.
Yeah. And there's a lot of groups like Adoptees Connect that meet in person in lots of different cities around the world. So I'll put some of those links that I know in the show notes in case anyone's looking for support. There's so much out there. So grab on.
Yes.
And that goes for adoptive parents too, or birth parents. There's groups for everybody. Like there's a group I just saw, people of color, women, adoptees.
There you go. Yeah, there are very specific ones as well.
Yeah.
There are some with the whole triad. Like I went to a lot out here, the Adopt Salon, Jeanette Yoff and Celia Center, which is phenomenal. Everybody go check them out. But she had like a full triad one, anybody connected to adoption. And it was great for us to educate the adoptive parents.
Yes.
And then we in turn were also educated by the birth mothers.
Yes, I bet.
So it was really fantastic. But then, like you said, there are specific branches as well.
Yeah, can drill down as deep as you need to go. Yeah.
Yes.
Now, I know from reading your story that your conception story was really difficult.
Yes.
Are you willing to share that piece of it?
Absolutely. Based on the timing of my birth, she believed that I was a product of a rape in high school.
Mm.
And yes. And when she saw me, she said I looked a lot like one of the three guys who were there.
Wow.
So we thought that he would be my father. And he was in federal prison at the time. And I was, I just pushed it away. I was like, well, I don't need to know who my father is. I'm done. I don't need to do that.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Wow.
But yeah, Beth, all those questions of identity pop up again. That's the last thing that I would have expected to hear.
Yeah. Oof.
And you go through it. It was highly emotional, of course. And she told me right away. She was honest with me about everything. Her letter was probably one of the most amazing letters I've ever read.
And she told you that right off the bat?
Yeah. Yeah, because she was basically said, I first want to answer a question that I'm sure you have for me and that I put to myself 23 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How could I give away my own son?
Yes.
And she told about her struggles and stuff. So very honest and beautiful.
Mm.
So, dealing with the emotions of that. But ultimately, you realize that, it was something that happened and my identity is not that. I am not that.
Yeah. Right.
I know the rape happened, but I am not the rape.
Right. Right. That must have been a really tough thing to work out. Did you have therapy with that, or you just worked it out in your head? Or
yeah, I was dating my wife at the time, and she was an amazing therapist.
Oh, excellent!
She stood by me throughout the whole thing, and still is standing by me.
Oh, I love that.
And yeah, I didn't go to anything like therapy until all the support groups and stuff. Which
after your play,
which was probably 13 years after I reunited.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when I premiered my play.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I haven't seen your play.
My play Blank.
Is there a video of it, or you have
There's a 7-minute excerpt on YouTube.
Okay.
I can send you the link.
But we have to just wait for it to be performed live again, huh?
Yeah, Rick hasn't seen it either. I do have some different versions recorded. I'm searching for a couple more, and I will eventually put something together. I filmed the original production in 2010 in Hollywood, and it has evolved since then. Like even different words and stuff like that I feel are more important and more representative of what it became.
All right.
So that's what I'm waiting for.
Well, when you make the film, let me know. Okay. Now, your second big project in the adoption world, your film at Ghost Kingdom, is about finding your birth father, right?
Yes.
Blank was about your reunion with your birth mom. And then the second piece was about finding your birth dad. And so you went along thinking that this guy in Leavenworth was your dad.
Yes. And I went down a search and 0%. And then I was looking for the other guys, and I did a few other tests and 0%. And I was so frustrated and gave up, and then just kind of put my faith in the online ancestry sites.
DNA. Good old DNA. Okay.
But yes, the film kind of takes a magnifying glass to the search itself. And I do follow the search for my father, because I did discover after some of those support groups the importance of knowing my biological father and finding out and discovering the truth. And just, I felt it was important to me because I built up these monsters in my head, these ghosts. BJ Lifton talks about the ghosts of adoption. And I just had negative fantasies, and I needed to ground those, to ground myself.
Did you have negative fantasies before you found out about that conception?
I had positive and negative fantasies before.
Okay. And then
yes. But once she thought I was from the rape, it all turned negative.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And it's just unhealthy.
Yeah. Well, I am happy to know that our other guest here is definitely not a criminal, not in Leavenworth, not a bad guy at all, like a super nice guy. And I am so happy for you that this is the outcome of your story. I mean, it's not done yet, but that this is where your story has led you. I'm just so happy that this is how it's happened. And how did you end up finding Rick?
Through the ancestry sites. I was able to put some names together, and a lovely woman who turns out to be my aunt.
Okay.
She married my uncle, and they were giving me information, and they were the ones that ultimately connected their family with Kansas City, because I was born in Kansas City, and we were trying to find a Kansas City connection.
Gotcha.
And just, this is very complicated, but just know that names and stories lined up. And I eventually sent Rick an email, as well as his sisters an email, saying that I believe we're related somehow.
Okay.
I'd love it and really appreciate it if you can help me out, or if you're willing to talk to me and help figure out how we are related, and if you know my father.
Yeah. And I know from your film at Ghost Kingdom that this was not the first time writing one of these letters, by far.
Yes. Yeah. I sent several emails
to many different people, right? So
messages and oh my goodness. And
so by this
calls,
time, we're like, okay, I'll just send this and probably nothing will happen. And
here we go again. Yep.
And then, and then it turned out so
good. Somebody responded.
How did that land on you, Rick? How did you find out?
It was an email on, it was March 12th of 2020.
That, he remembers the day.
I received the email saying possible relation.
Wow.
And with my bride by my side, we opened the email.
Okay.
And realized that there was connection not only to names on my mother's side of the family through the DNA, but a connection to my hometown of Kansas City, Missouri.
Okay.
And a connection to my high school where his birth mother had attended. And I just said, if you'll give me the name of your birth mother, I'll tell you whether we have more to talk about or not.
Okay.
And he did, and we did.
Very good. So you remembered his birth mom, but I understand that the opposite is not true.
Correct. Yeah, she did not remember.
Did that make you feel sad, right?
Yeah.
I wonder how that felt to you. Like, or did it matter to you?
It was a one-night date that went further than either of us thought it would go. So, it's just the way it was. We were both out of control, 16-year-olds with no boundaries, and that's just where we're at. And fortunately, my bride knew I wasn't a choir boy before we met, and so she was very supportive throughout the process. She continues to be. Nice. As Brian is blessed with a lovely bride as well, I am as well. And so 43 years she's been by my side.
That is so wonderful, because it doesn't always happen like that. A lot of times people refuse to reunite or, refuse to even talk to anybody because their husband or their wife doesn't know. And, oh, my God. So that's brilliant.
Yes. There's a lot of people just want to hold on to secrets or move on, not revisit the past or anything like that. And Rick and his whole family has been extremely open to me.
That is so nice.
Extremely open to me and very loving and very supportive. Very fortunate.
Yes.
It's been a blessing both ways, that's for sure. Yes. And it continues to be. And
thank you.
But I would just say that my inclination, probably because my history and my background has me in a ministry for fathers, and so I was very sensitive to the need for connection. So wanted to support that in any way I could, whether it was actual or whether it needed to just be a sounding board.
Well, Brian, you just won the jackpot. You found a dad that works in fatherhood, in the fatherhood industry.
I know.
How did you do that?
You can't make this up.
That's amazing. And I have to say, Brian mentioned we met at the Untangling Our Roots Summit in Louisville back in March, and they screened his film. And then Brian got up and said, "And I have a surprise for you," because the film ends with you still not knowing. Right? You had to end the film somehow at a certain point. Yeah. And then it was after you ended it, right, that you found your dad, after it was all wrapped up. Yes. So you said, hey, by the way, P.S., I did find my dad. And by the way, he's right here. And oh my God, it was like some sort of game show, riotous applause. And just everyone was weeping. And it was just so, and you could just tell, Rick, your demeanor, you were just so warm and loved and loving. And it was just a beautiful moment. How was that for you two?
I would say it's the most amazing group of people in one place, accepting of my faith, accepting of where I was at, accepting of understanding the confusion, and just lots of love and tears and hugs. So it was wonderful.
Yeah. That was Rick's first time at a conference.
First adoption, anything. Wow.
It was beautiful. My first conference, I befriended a birth mother and her daughter, Kathy Coley and Arlene Donovan. And they both taught me so much about this adoption world, this world of adoption and foster. And I learned so much from them. And now I'm in that role.
Yes.
I'm able to attend a conference with my father, just like they were together
beautiful.
and helped educate. And it was a very beautiful moment, very special.
Yes. Rick, how many people came up to you and said, I wish you were my birth father?
They knew I wasn't perfect, right? You do too.
Sure. Well.
So I'm on the journey just like every other dad, but I will say that I can't put into words the love that was present in that room, and certainly the love I have for Brian and his family.
Yeah, it was definitely palpable. It was a moment, that is for sure. Yeah. Okay. So the story's not over though, y'all. This is not done yet because there's a major twist right after this commercial break. No, just kidding. There's no commercials in this episode, but I should, just to make everybody wait. Okay. So there's a major twist. We'd think this would be it, but no, there's more.
Yes. Well, my uncle had told me that they knew they had a brother out there somewhere. Because their father, this is how they're connected to Kansas City, their father moved to Sedalia, Missouri, which is a suburb outside of Kansas City, and worked for the Ford Edsel.
Okay.
And he had an affair with another married woman, and she became pregnant. She told him that she was pregnant. And then he came clean to his wife, and his wife said, okay, well, I'm going to move back to Illinois with the kids. You can either stay here with that woman, or you can come back with the rest of your family. And they all went back to Illinois. And the guy who turns out to be my uncle said, Brian, we believe that woman had a son, and that son is your father.
Oh my gosh.
So I was like, oh, great. My father was probably also given up for adoption. I'm never going to find him. I just went down that road. But when we met, I was kind of fishing. When we were talking, I was kind of fishing whether he knew that. Because I was surprised that he was my father. I figured maybe he didn't grow up in that family.
Okay.
So it became evident. Rick and I, we had that Zoom meeting where we first saw each other and spoke. And I was kind of throwing some hooks out there to see if you bit. I said something like, well, I don't see Wertz anywhere in any of the family trees. And he said, oh, I think I know why. They're just not into that. And there's not many of them around right now.
Oh, okay.
Wertz has never cared where they came from, just where they're going. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, oh, so I realized, Beth, that he didn't know. And I called my uncle and I said, I found him, and they were elated because they've known about him their whole life, or at least Rick's whole life, right? And they've been searching for him, but they had a misspelling of his last name. They just had kind of the wrong last name. So they were barking up the wrong tree always.
Wow.
And they were just elated over the moon that I found him. And I said, well, he doesn't know the story. And he's like, no way, he has to know. And I said, he doesn't know the story. I need you to tell me every detail about Ford Edsel, the affair, everything you know, just tell me, because I'm about to tell this man that his father that raised him is not his biological father. And I did feel it my duty to tell him. Here I am preaching openness in the system. And
oh, man.
And I had this information. I felt I had to tell him. So Rick said, hey, I enjoyed Zooming with you. Would love to do it again on your time. And I said, let's do it in 2 days.
Okay.
So that I could prepare to tell him. And so I told him, I said, Rick, I have some information for you. I told him the whole story. And I said, I believe that boy is you. And he immediately said, well, I don't know what to do with that information. And I said, you don't have to do anything. I felt it my duty to tell you. And if you do want to do anything, I'll go on that journey with you. I'll stand right by you. I know how to help. I know what to do. And that's it.
And with that, I knew that with the lining up of Ma's side of the family, and then an urban name showed up in his DNA, then I needed to take a DNA test and see how that lines up.
Okay.
So I did the DNA for 2 reasons. One was to validate the paternity, which it did. And second was to find out why this other name shows up out there. And indeed, it identified who Brian calls his uncle as my half brother.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh.
And I actually called my eldest sister. A little bit of background on my family is that my 2 eldest sisters were born in Ohio. They moved to Sedalia when they were young, and mom and dad, the dad that raised me, had another daughter there in Sedalia. Now, Dad was a violent alkie. It was not a healthy home situation. And when I was born, all I knew is that they had moved from Sedalia to Kansas City when Ma was pregnant with me, and that was that.
Okay.
So when I called my eldest sister, I said, Mary Carol, if Ma would have had an affair in Sedalia, if she confided in anyone, she would have confided in you. And I said, can you tell me? And she said, long silence. And then finally she said, yes, she did. Why do you ask?
Okay.
So Ma and the dad that raised me for 13 years of my life both took the secret to the grave, which just validates Brian's whole mantra, no secrets, right?
Yep. Get rid of those secrets.
And it has caused quite a ruffle in our family.
I bet.
On that side, because it brought up a lot of stuff in our youth that I hadn't even shared with our kids, with Linda's and my kids.
Oh, wow.
I just tried to keep Grandpa in good light, right?
Sure.
And he passed back in 94, so they were quite young when he passed anyway.
Okay.
But anyway, I took the DNA test and showed that John was my half brother.
Okay.
He lives 20 miles away from me.
In Texas?
John is the uncle that helped me, by the way.
Okay.
Just
so
for clarification.
And he lives so close to you in Texas?
So I went up to meet him in his office, and he puts a big bear hug on me and says, brother, we've been looking for you for 25 years.
Oh, my gosh.
And I said, I got to hear this story. And that's when he shared everything that Brian just shared, is that this was the background.
Yeah.
And
so within a few days, you find out you have a son that you never knew you had. And then you also find out you're a NPE, or not parent expected type person, with different biology than you thought you had, and had this whole other family somewhere. Oh my gosh. Right? In just a couple of days, right?
Not very many people get a son, a daughter-in-law, 2 granddaughters, 3 brothers, and a sister for their birthday. But
gosh.
That was what it was.
Did it also happen around your birthday?
Yes.
It was right on your birthday, too?
It was around. My birthday's in May. So it was around that time where all of this came to light.
Brian, if you were to write a screenplay, you couldn't make this up. This is crazy.
No, I know. So if I do write a screenplay, it should be pretty easy. I have no excuse,
you don't have to
right?
think of any twists and turns are already there.
All the plot points are there.
Oh my gosh. Now, it sounds, Rick, like you were just happy about all of these things, which is great, but some people might not have been happy. I don't know. Maybe if someone was super comfy, cozy in their regular old life, that would have been destabilizing. Or maybe it still was, even if it was good. How did that, in the next coming weeks, after all of these revelations came to light, how did you deal with all of these complex emotions?
Well, the first step was flying out to Culver City to meet Brian and his family. So that just validated everything from the genetic mirroring that we saw in our interaction with his daughters.
Nice.
That was grounding.
Nice.
Coming back and having time with John and routinely getting together has helped help that relationship mature as well. I mean, as Brian said before this revelation, he said he'd been on a roller coaster ride. And I said, I hope we can get that roller coaster ride to come to an end.
Yeah.
But then he turned around and said, well, I may put you on your own roller coaster ride. And that's kind of what it is. Because certainly Linda's and my kids have been very gracious and invited Brian and Brenda to their weddings. And back in 2021, they both got married in 2021.
Both during COVID?
And that was a fabulous time together.
Wow. Yeah, that doesn't always happen either. Sometimes the siblings are super jealous, or just like, nope, not enough room for you here, when somebody waltzes in with DNA or whatever. I mean, I've heard really tragic stories about that.
And I just say my other siblings, my sisters, did have mixed reactions.
Oh, okay.
Because like I said, it stirred up a lot of ugliness in our past.
Oh, okay.
And we had to go back and revisit some of that candidly without, glossing it over. Because that, again, these go back to the secrets that too often prevail in families. Right?
Yep. Get rid of those. Come on, people.
Yeah, it's tough when secrets are buried that deep. You're also burying a lot of emotions and memories at the time. And when the secret opens, all that comes out with it. But it's a very healing thing when you're able to sit down and talk about it and be open about it. And like what Rick said, connect about it. You make a new connection and just connect with each other in a real and honest way. That's the only way to improve this adoption world is to connect, because we're all looking for connection anyway.
That's what the whole missing piece is, this connection.
And that's what the whole thing is.
I was going to ask, what is it like to meet somebody that's absolutely a stranger to you, but that you're genetically related to? Like, how do you start building a relationship? Can you reflect on what that's been like the last couple of years, either of you?
For me, I guess it was automatic that the genetic mirroring.
Mm-hmm.
He and I went on a walk together, hikes together. The performer in him is very consistent with my side of the family. So there were just some things those things are automatic from my perspective. Brian, yours may be different.
Yeah, Brian, I can imagine you in high school. You were the star of every show and worked the lights and did everything.
I was.
Okay, I know who you are. I know you.
But I also played sports.
Oh, really?
Which was funny. I lived in all these different worlds. Yeah.
How did you do that?
In college, I was actually in a fraternity too. So I did theater and I was in a fraternity, and all my frat brothers made fun of me because I was the theater geek, and all my theater friends made fun of me because I was the frat boy.
Absolutely. Boy, you are living in two different worlds there a couple of ways.
I'm the chameleon. Totally. I'm the adoptee chameleon.
That happens so often. Adoptees are very good at that. But did your adoptive family support your artistic endeavors, and were they arty, or did you feel like a fish out of water?
They eventually did. And I've spoken with Rick about this. They didn't know what to do with me.
Yeah.
You know, I begged Mom for her acting lessons for a few years and just no. But I just wanted it. And in Cub Scouts, we had a week-long theater thing to where we played theater games at Theater for Young America in Kansas City. Okay. And I just loved it. And I was like, Mom, can I just stay and take their classes? Mm-hmm. And she agreed. And very shortly after I started classes there, they had auditions for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and they were casting kids for the kids.
Nice.
And I auditioned, and I got the role of Mike TV. This is in seventh grade. Bang, bang, bang. In seventh grade, I had my first professional theater experience, and I never went back. Now, my mom has told me all this. She came clean. They were just hoping it was a hobby. I'd get over it.
Going to go away
I wanted to study it, and blah, blah, blah. And they were telling me not to major in theater. Don't do that. And years later, Beth, I was out here in California, and my adoptive mother came and spoke to me. And she said, Brian, we didn't know what to do with you. We had no education in the arts there, and we didn't know how to help you.
Sure.
And I saw the pain in her eyes.
Yeah, yeah.
And they did the best they could.
That's valid,
You know, I don't doubt that. But I saw the pain in her eyes, and she admitted that she just didn't know how to help guide me down that path. So she was trying to get me to go down different paths.
Yeah, like be an accountant or something, right?
Yeah. Oh, I'd be a terrible accountant.
I know.
Don't hire me. Unless I play one on TV.
Oh, right. You could play one.
That'd be a great one.
I'm sure. Now, Rick, your family seems like it's more arty and theater driven.
Well, actually, it's both too, because I went through school on a tennis scholarship. My son went through baseball scholarship. And but then my daughter is a musical theater nut. My mother was the one that had a professional level vocal gift, and she passed it on to my daughter, which is another one of the curveballs in this whole thing, Beth, is that my daughter, Amanda, had put her grandmother on a pedestal. So, you know, with the story turning out the way it did, it just really, that was probably the hardest blow for her. But and I told her, I said, Ma wouldn't want you to put her on a pedestal anyway. You know, that's just the way it is. But she was living Ma's dream by going to New York to chase Broadway.
Yeah. So she felt very connected to your mother, even though she's already passed, and just like, oh, Grandma, if you could see me now, that kind of thing. And then realizing that there was some deceit there. And
it was disappointing, I think. But the parallel between Amanda chasing Broadway for 11 years and Brian's journey is very similar. And it's fascinating. So,
Did you just feel like you were at home, Brian?
Yeah, it's been really cool. Yeah, let me go back to your question, Beth, on what was it like to see someone biologically related to you. It's a little jarring at first for adoptees, I think. Of course, I'll just speak for me. Because of those ghosts and fantasies, you built up, what they look like and all this stuff. So when you see an actual picture or a person right there in front of you, the real person, it can be a little jarring.
I bet.
Like, wait a second, that's not who I pictured. That's not, So there's that. But the genetic mirroring is so important. Yeah. And even just mannerisms. I went to visit Rick's, two of his sisters in Kansas City. And I did something, the way I sat down or the way I crossed my leg or the way, I can't remember,
something
but
simple.
They both pointed at me and they said, oh, that's Rick. That's Rick right there.
Oh my gosh.
So to hear things like that it gives you a sense of confidence of who you are. It just grounds you a little bit. It's just that genetic mirroring that you don't have growing up. And I grew up in a white family. I mean, imagine people of color growing up in an all-white family or something, or of any kind, or if they live in an all-white neighborhood, and where is the genetic mirroring there? So yeah, it's very important.
Yes.
And I'm sure your son is like this. Like we walk down the street and we're just looking at details.
Could she be my mother? Yes.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. So it's comforting. And it is shocking, like I said, because the ghost becoming real. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about genetic mirroring.
Well, at least you didn't say you want somebody better looking as a dad. I mean, that's because it's so gracious, right?
When my first daughter was born, she was the first biological relative, live-in relative that I had. And it's an amazing feeling to not have that growing up. And then you have your own child in with you. Yeah.
I understand that's extremely blowing your mind when you have a child of your own. Yeah. And the genetics, I think I'm about your age, Brian, but when I was growing up, it was all about nurture.
Oh, you're 25 too?
Yeah, yes, exactly. But the genetics were just like, oh yeah. And there's probably some genes too, but mostly it's about nurture. And I think people are starting to figure out that it's so much more, I don't know, more important, but the genetics are super important. I don't know how to quantify it, but I think we've underestimated the importance of genetics. Do you agree?
Oh yeah. And we're learning a lot more, with science and stuff like that about what genetics do, and also the knowledge of them and stuff that gets passed down.
Yes,
and, there's a lot of things you don't know, health wise, mental health wise, everything. Yeah. I mean, the first thing the doctor asks you is, do you have any heart problems in your family? I'm like, I don't know, but now I know.
Now you know. I'm so excited.
So
yeah, that must just turn the sword every time the doctor asks you that, or the dentist, God, how many people have to ask me this? And I have to say, I have no idea. That must just really hurt adoptees.
Yeah.
And Rick, you were telling the doctor what you thought you knew the whole time. And then you found out, I bet you had different medical history.
And I still don't have that all answered, but I had a very similar experience to Brian when I went out to dinner with my half brother and his bride. Sharon was just looking at me the whole dinner. And and she just said, "You are George." And
oh my gosh,
it's from the laugh to the way you hold your head. That was she just. And I'm wondering if that's why I haven't been successful meeting my other sister. And you talk about genetics. My bride was actually relieved that I would not have the alcoholism that the dad that raised me had. So I didn't know this, but 45 years ago, her mother told her that, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Are you sure you want to marry this guy? And
yeah, because addiction is hereditary.
After 43 years of marriage, she's now relieved that I'm.
You're not going to hit the bottle anytime soon. But, okay.
Everybody is normal till you get to know them, and what other traits are there that I've inherited? So
yeah, there might be some things you still don't know, but wow, it's such a fascinating story between you two and your whole family, all of your families smushed together. And it's just delightful to know you and to hear the joy and the love between you is just so gratifying. Sometimes adoption stories can get really rough, and yours was pretty rough there, Brian, for a while. And I can't imagine how relieved and grateful you must feel, although I'm not telling you adoptees to be grateful.
Yeah, right. No, it's, I just kept looking for the truth.
Yeah.
And if it turned out that I was a product of rape, that's fine. I thought I was for 23 years. So, I came to peace with it already. But yes, this is a very happy, quote unquote, ending. But even if it didn't end up this way, just having the knowledge and taken the power in my own hands to search, because it is my right to find out the truth, says a lot, because you certainly don't want to tell everybody, just keep looking because it's going to be great.
Yeah, no.
Not everything is pleasant, but things are as they are and we deal with them. But knowing the truth and moving forward with whatever truth that is very, very important.
Empowering,
and we need a community to help us out, help us through that.
I call it being real.
Being real, man. Being real.
Yes.
Tip my cap to the adoptive community because that's all they're looking for is the real truth and the real answers.
Just want to know.
And we need a lot more of that.
Yeah. I've asked several adoptees that had kind of bad reunion stories. Are you glad you found them, even though they hurt you so badly or they were jerks or whatever? And they always say, yes, I'm glad at least I know. So something about knowing the truth.
Yeah. And, not every adopted person wants to search.
No.
But if they're given information, just holding on to that information and knowing is enough.
Yeah.
Everybody's different.
Yeah.
Or we're all on our own clock too,
Yeah.
right? We're all on our own time. So
I wonder if each of you could offer one piece of advice for somebody who's starting to search or thinking about searching.
Well, I would say find a support group.
Okay.
I just think that having that community and talking with people who have done it and been through it and help you through that process is huge. My reunion with Rick is completely different from my reunion with my mother. We're, highs and lows, of course. But if I knew then what I know now, it would have been so much smoother. And I think we would have smoothed out some of those rough patches. But here, my reunion with Rick, having that knowledge has helped tremendously.
Nice. That's so great.
So I would say find a group.
I would agree with that, particularly after being exposed to the adoption community, that group, that love, that support. But then I would also add, don't assume anything. Keep your mind open, keep listening, and work through the curveballs that are going to hit you.
I love that.
Yeah, I'm sure it's never going to be perfect. Even you guys look perfect, but I'm sure you're not perfect. But yeah, when you grow up completely, you've never met each other until you're totally grown adults with their own lives and everything. There's bound to be little bumpy things and you just work it out, right?
Brian's first comment to me is that, I don't want to spend every Christmas with you, but I would like to get to know you.
That's great. Yeah, you're like, I don't want to interrupt your life. Exactly. I just
right. Yeah. We feel that. We're like, we don't want to be a burden. We don't want to interrupt anything. We don't want to change anything. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, is there anything else either of you would like to say that I haven't asked you about? Anything I've missed?
I would just, as you knew, I'm in ministry. So from a faith standpoint, from an Old Testament standpoint or New Testament in Scripture, we're all adoptees. And so that was affirming to me that I have a Heavenly Father, and He's more than capable of filling the gap. And I know He's filled the gap where I've fallen short in my own fathering, obviously with Brian and certainly with the kids we raised as well. So that's just the only other dimension I would add, Beth.
That's beautiful. Would you like to share a little bit about your ministry that you have?
Sure. We come alongside the church. Too often the church is caught up in religion and different things that may send mixed messages to dads and to parents and what have you. And so we really just come beside the church to provide a strategy and an encouragement. We say we want to encourage and equip dads to be faithful fathers, which by definition, a faithful father prioritizes physical presence, is engaged emotionally, and leads spiritually by example. So that's what we do.
Nice.
And I'm on the journey as well.
Nice. And what's your group called?
Ministry is Faithful Fathering. It's faithfulfathering.org.
Faithful Fathering. I'll put that in the notes. That's really valuable information. And thank you for doing that work, Rick. And you can find Brian's film at Ghost Kingdom at ghostkingdom.com. And you can also find him on Instagram at the Brian Stanton. Oh, Brian and Rick, you're awesome. I enjoy this time talking to you, and I will enjoy, well, I don't know, Brian, do you have another film coming? What are you going to do for this reunion?
With it, I don't
get
know.
on that.
I have things written down, but nothing has come together as a full play or film. So
it'll come into your mind one day.
I will let you all know. But the story continues, right? So it's not a happy ending. Usually the credits roll after this amazing reunion and the music plays and it goes to black. But a good friend of mine, Jeff Forney, always says that reunion is just base camp of Mount Everest.
Oh.
Then you got the journey of the relationship.
This is the journey. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the journey always continues.
And I back that up.
And I'm thrilled to be on that journey.
Nice.
Thrilled as well. And I'd back that up. That it is a journey.
Life is a journey.
And I've enjoyed every step of it.
Oh, so beautiful. Well, thank you both for sharing your story. I very, very much appreciate it. And everyone who's listening, please share this episode with anyone that you know that's an adoptee, that's an NPE, that, or a DNA discoverer person or an adoptive parent. I mean, there's so much gold in this episode to learn from and to celebrate with these guys and to, really deeply consider all these ramifications of our choices in parenting and adoption. So share the episode, find Unraveling Adoption at unravelingadoption.com. There's information on our website. If you're an adoptive parent, I have an adoptive parenting group called Aptitude. It's free to join. And I also am just starting a coaching practice for parents. I'm focusing on helping out adoptive parents. So if any of you adoptive parents or foster parents are looking for help, I am a certified coach, and there's information about that on our website as well, unravelingadoption.com.
Excellent.
Fantastic. Well done.
Thank you so much. I feel very led. I feel very passionately about it.
That's great. Beth, wish you the best. That's fantastic.
Thanks again, Brian and Rick. You're amazing. And Brian, Rick, and I want you all to stay safe.